Facebook Live Lighthouse Addictions topic show. My name is Joe and I am your host for today. I'm super excited to introduce somebody who's usually behind the camera, but today I'm actually interviewing him. Here's my awesome friend Jim. Welcome, Jim. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jim, Jim Sugel, and I'm actually in recovery myself. I work with Joe here, and we do some of the filming for the show and some of the scripting and topics and finding the people for the show, and so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sure has. It's been a pleasure working with you. And something that I really look forward to is our talks about the adventures that you have. Usually you're out and about on the weekends going canyoneering, is that what it's called?
Canyoneering, yes.
And doing these amazing hikes with beautiful views. You want to tell us a little bit about how you experience adventures in recovery?
Sure. One of the things that I've discovered in recovery is that a lot of times people, I can speak only for myself, but when you come into recovery, a lot of times we're getting a lot of excitement from the activities we're engaging in when we're out there. So that might be drinking, it might be drugs, right? It might be hanging out in bars or whatever it is. Let's face it, there's some allure to that, and part of it is just that kind of that lifestyle. So what I've found is that by substituting something that's really interesting and exciting and adventurous, we can actually duplicate to some extent those sort of feelings, feelings and sensations that we got from the partying.
Yeah, I remember in my first year of recovery, I had two goals. I was going to get a motorcycle and I was going to go skydiving because I wanted that same excitement and that adrenaline rush. That's something that I noticed that a lot of newcomers, that they want to do something like that to kind of imitate that excitement.
Right.
I think you have a healthier option of doing the things that you do. So let's backtrack a little bit. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your history?
Sure, yeah. And I have 14 years of sobriety now.
Wow.
So it's been a while, and actually I also had 8 years one other time. So I've been involved in the program for a long time. There was a lot of drinking and a lot of partying, and there were good times and bad times, and so it's not so much about the real detailed story here, but let's just say that I went until the wheels fell off, and like a lot of us do. So I had to go as far as I had to go, and I did. So when I came into the program, especially this time, I was born in Chicago, and so when I came out here, I was out here sober for a couple of years during that first 8-year period, and then I relapsed out here, and I was out for about 2 years. So when I came into recovery, I had been in California only for a couple of years, so I wasn't like a lifelong California native. So in Chicago, there are no mountains, obviously, right? There's the closest thing to a mountain is a skyscraper. So,
really?
Right, in Chicago. And it's very flat. So hiking and climbing and that kind of thing, it's not really something that I had done because you don't really have those opportunities there. But when I was sober, maybe like I don't know, maybe a couple of years, year and a half, couple of years, I was just kept looking at the mountains here because Southern California has these really beautiful mountain ranges, and I kept looking at the mountains and I was like, wow, those mountains are so cool. There must be something really great out there, and because they're huge. It's very diverse topography here. And the mountains are really, really extensive mountain ranges. So I just started kind of exploring the mountains and eventually got into hiking and backpacking and some other things like canyoneering and rock climbing, and it's been really great.
And how do you feel that these adventure experiences that you do, how do you feel like it's beneficial to your recovery?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I think in a number of ways. I think, like I said, one of the things that we want is that, and I think that a lot of addicts, alcoholics crave, is that sense of excitement, right? And there's also, though, so you get that, especially if you do something like canyoneering, which is descending canyons, so you rappel down.
So scary. I've seen his videos, and I'd be terrified.
Yeah, so you rappel down a waterfall, and that's really cool. And, you know, no matter what's going on, if you're standing at the edge of the waterfall and you're looking down 100 feet, you know, you wake up, right? It's like instantaneous.
Oh my gosh.
So you get that adrenaline rush, so that's part of it, right? And that's a big part of it. There's also the physical component, which is obviously there's obviously a fitness component, and there's, along with both of those, there's a psychological component, right? I mean, it kind of helps us with our thinking and our mental processes. But what a lot of people don't realize, and I think the thing maybe I didn't fully grasp, the sort of the unexpected benefit, was the spiritual component.
Absolutely.
You know, because there's a real spiritual connection I find in nature.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that, I'm not saying it's not impossible to achieve in an urban environment, but it's something, it's
really
more difficult. Yeah.
You're
around.
It's loud and it's busy. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that actually, if they're feeling overwhelmed or burnt out, they just disappear to the forest or disappear to the mountains.
Yeah,
that's where they find their some clarity, and they get to clear their head and find some peace. So yeah, I completely understand that.
So I think that one reason people may be hesitant even to go into those areas to some extent, especially by themselves, because I go with friends, but I also go by myself, and I enjoy being by myself. And is it dangerous? Sometimes it is, right? But it's also, it allows me to, I feel that there's nothing separating me from my higher power in those situations. And it's actually, I think it's kind of difficult to deny the existence of a higher power in those situations as well.
What defines a higher power? Something that is greater than yourself, right? So, I remember my fiance, actually, his higher power is nature, and I said, why is your higher power nature? He said, because if you look at the ocean, do you have any control over the waves of the ocean?
Right.
I said, no, that's a power greater than yourself, and you have no control over the trees growing or how high the mountains are. So it's a beautiful thing, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's what happens. When I'm in a beautiful natural environment, I actually see the kind of God, the creator. Because my higher power I call God, and that's sort of, in recovery, it's a personal thing as to how we define our higher power. But I see that connection there, and the creativity and beauty inherent in the landscape and the animals and the trees and everything. So it's really quite beautiful.
So how often do you do an adventure?
Well, I go usually twice a week.
Oh wow,
yeah.
It's pretty often.
Yeah, so I go on Sunday, and sometimes I'll sneak out during the week and get away. So.
Oh well, you gotta let me know so I can go with you next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you just travel anywhere, pretty much anywhere local, or?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of places in Southern California. As I indicated, it's really amazing here because we have such diversity in terrain. That's one of the great things about Southern California. I think that we have these huge mountain ranges, and we have deserts, and we have the ocean and everything. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Cool. Okay. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share about adventures in recovery or sobriety?
Yeah, it's really something that I would strongly recommend for anyone. Is to maybe not like when you're sober 30 days, you might want to wait a little bit to get into something like that. But I think that it's something that can be super beneficial for a lot of people. It has been for me. And I've found a lot of people as well that have come in and been sort of disillusioned once they get into some sort of like a natural outdoor activity. It's been very beneficial for recovery.
Good. Would you suggest going in a group?
I would say at first that's probably a good idea.
Okay.
For someone to go in a group.
How do you usually find these groups of people? If anybody was interested in finding a group of people to do canyoneering or hiking with?
Well, there are some meetups that. If anyone's familiar with Meetup.com, it's pretty well known. So there are usually meetups for almost anything you could want, for climbing or for even canyoneering or for hiking or for backpacking. There are usually meetups in almost any area. And as sometimes there are even sober meetups or sober groups for adventure sports. So I would look into that, or also sometimes even in a meeting. People can find it in a meeting. In your meetings, just ask around, and usually there are people in recovery doing a lot of interesting things.
Very cool. So do you have anything you'd like to say to a family member or a loved one that has a loved one that's suffering with addiction?
Well, I would say that don't lose hope, that there is always hope. I think all of us who are in recovery at one time appeared hopeless, and we're all here now. So there's that. And don't give up, but also don't enable, because the enabling really sometimes helps people to maintain their addiction.
Sure. And do you have anything you'd like to say to somebody who's currently struggling with alcoholism or addiction?
I would say get some help, because I did, and I think all of us who are in recovery have, and it's really a better life, because you can't do things like canyoneering when you're drinking and smoking crack. It just doesn't seem to work. So anyway, it's been pretty awesome, and I would really encourage you guys to get involved.
Awesome. Well, I'm so proud of you, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks.
Just a reminder that we are here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Facebook.com/WhiteHouseTreatment. Thank you. See you next week.
All right.